Please bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to come together, and thank you for the gifts, the skills, and the abilities that you provided to us. Help us to use those to do your work. Help us to use the wisdom you've provided us to do your work here, and not only here, but as we go from here. Help us also to praise you for the many wonderful opportunities you provided us and the many blessings you provided us. And please continue to provide blessings to Joe Skidmore as she recovers, as well as many people who are still suffering from the effects of a pandemic and as they recover. Please also continue to extend your blessings on folks in our heart that may be sick or may be suffering. Also help us to praise you and remind us to praise you for the people who are here protecting us and the people who protect us from far away as well. And as we go from here, help us to do your work and help us continue to do your work wherever we are. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept our agenda. So moved. We have a motion from Alderman Hayes with a second from Alderman Waters. Anybody wish to speak on that? Oh, I got to remind y'all, the way that you you seek to speak is you press that button there, and then it pops up to me here that you're in the queue and wish to speak. The button right in the middle, the one that has the picture or the image of somebody speaking, which took me about 4 years to figure out what that image was. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. And we have to do that by pressing the button. So Jason, let us know when we're ready. Don't press anything until it starts blinking. And again, we're voting on accepting the agenda, so you can go ahead and press that. That's unanimous. We have an agenda. Next, we have no presentations. We have no public hearing. I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes from our meeting on May 11th, 2021. We have a motion from Alderman Hayes and seconded from Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Hayes, you keep looking at me like you want you to speak. I don't.
Well,
is there something on this?
I do need to abstain on this vote.
Okay. Thank you.
No other comment.
Thank you. We're ready, Jason? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as provided, please signify by saying aye with the button. Those opposed, please say nay. And that passes unanimously. Citizen comments. I don't believe we have anybody signed up. Robert, is there anybody on that list next you could take? I appreciate that. We have no citizen comments. Ordinance and resolutions. Our first item is Resolution 2021-29. This is a resolution to approve a final development plan for the new Shackle Island Veterinary Hospital. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can you make a motion for us?
Yes, I move to accept that resolution.
We have a motion from Alderman Peterson and a second from Alderman Waters. Alderman Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know if we have a site design for this veterinary hospital.
Tina, do we have something to pull up? Keith, do you want to come up here and help us out? Jason, we're going to a little bit of feedback. What do I need to do? You think we're good?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a visual. Everyone has it in your packet, and it should have in there kind of the layout. This is approval of a final development plan for the expansion of a veterinarian hospital boarding area on that property. It's been to the Planning Commission and recommended approval, and also been to the General Committee and recommended, and then it's here before you this evening.
Thank you, Keith. Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, I just, and Dr. Lane is here. He is the owner of the property and the veterinarian. And I believe the parcel is approximately 9 acres. And it at one time was zoned residential and also approved for a veterinary hospital. And he is wanting to build a new hospital on that site. And I would encourage the board to approve. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. All those in favor of accepting Resolution 2021-29, please signify by pressing the button aye. Those opposed, please press no. That passes 13-0. Next, we have second and final reading of ordinance 2021-17. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 18, Chapter 2, Land Disturbance Regulations, Chapter 3, regarding post-construction runoff. Thank you all. Appreciate you all. And illicit discharge and connections to stormwater regulations. Chapter 5, stormwater utility to maintain compliance with regulations set forth by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Alderman Skidmore. We have a motion from Alderman Skidmore and a second from Alderman Robertson. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask the planning director a question, if you don't mind, Keith. Would you come up to the podium?
Yes, Alderman.
Have you got this in your presence?
I sure
Page
do.
30.
Is the land disturbance?
Could you turn to page 37?
Sure. Okay.
Got it? That's under the 18-303, right?
Yes, I see that, yes.
Okay. My question is, explain to the board or to me if, how this, if any, could affect the change in any way, the way your department or the commissioners, how they would look at applications in the near future, if any.
This isn't actually from the planning department. This is from the Public Works Department. So if there is actually a representative of the Public Works Department, they may be better suited to address that. I'm not really familiar with this particular document, but since it's something that's administered out of the Public Works Department, although we work
Alderman
closely
Robertson
with them.
might be able to help us with that one. Do you want to try that, Alderman Robertson?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
Hold on. There you go.
and maybe Ms. Locke could come to help, because these are regulations that the state requires cities to maintain. To me, the bulk of this of these changes actually creates for the first time a citizens review stormwater board that can hear appeals. At the present time, we do not find companies that violate our storm ordinances. We have to have due process procedures in place, and this document, this document that we will hopefully approve tonight, will for the first time allow staff on developers that flagrantly violate our stormwater ordinance to be able to find those entities, and they may appeal those fines by the staff to this stormwater review board that this ordinance so creates. So I don't know if that answers your question, Alderman Waters.
The reason I brought to full Keith, when it says shall be applicable to all subdivisions or site applications, and I immediately thought of you, your department. So what you're saying, it doesn't affect you at all. That's the reason I brought it up. Maybe I should have called. Maybe I should have called you and talked to you.
Yes, no, that's fine. It would impact development, which we partner with the Public Works Department in our reviews and the fire department. But this would be applicable to all subdivisions, site plans, and everything. And I think as Alderman Robertson explained, what this gives is it gives more teeth for our stormwater enforcement. We have that through zoning when you have a site plan or you have a subdivision plat, and we can get all involved in that. But this goes a little bit further. This really is going to, we're kind of covered in a lot of those things. It's the things that don't have a site plan or don't have a subdivision agreement or something like that. Those are the things that this will really impact. But I think it's just noting those so that it's all encompassing within that. But that was a very good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I bothered you.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Alderman Watterson, anything else? Oh, Alderman Robertson.
Ms. Locke, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
Sarah, can you hold on one second? Without objection, we're going to suspend the rules and allow Sarah Locke to speak. Go ahead, Sarah.
No, Keith addressed it. A lot of the things in here that would affect applicants for new subdivisions and commercial developments, they're already being held to a lot of those stormwater requirements through our design process, design review process. So a lot of this, as Keith said, is going to be during construction, giving, that department more teeth to enforce what they're supposed to be doing.
Alderman Robertson, anything else? Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Alderman Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Alderman Robertson, does this also mean that there will be an appeals committee for those people who are wanting to appeal on some stormwater fee?
Yeah, it's my understanding that they may appeal any fine that the staff would impose, and that they could appeal to this new citizens board, and then if they're not satisfied, they could, of course, appeal to the board, to the board itself. It's my understanding that if there are some properties that think that they're being overcharged
Yes.
for stormwater fees, that they can take their appeal to this citizens board and make their case to that board.
Thank you so much. I support that.
Alderman Hayes, thank you. Alderman Robertson, thank you. All those in favor of second and final reading ordinance 2021-17, please signify by pressing the green button. Those opposed, please press the red button, but not quite yet. Now we're good. Jason, I didn't see the total. I see who's voted. Okay. Do we need to vote again? Okay, let's go ahead and vote again, please. We need one more person. Alderman Waters, we need you to vote again. That passed unanimously. Thank you all. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2021-19. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 4, Chapter 3, regarding the comprehensive classification and compensation plan. I so move. Second by Alderman Hayes. Alderman Robertson, if you could hold on one second. I need to amend what I have proposed, and I'm embarrassed to do that, to be honest with you. If you all go to page 55. When staff and I met, gosh, it's probably been 2 months ago or so, several people met on this and our city attorney. This is where this ordinance comes from, is the conversation in that staff, in that meeting. You'll see what I'm deleting is essentially 3 lines. We need to leave in, no current employee affected by this situation will be harmed by this new policy. Essentially, we need to eliminate that as a sentence so it stays in the current ordinance. But in order to do that, we need to amend my ordinance right here. What that will do is that will provide the wording that we needed, that the folks in that meeting agreed to, that need to happen. The point was, when the board passed this back in October 2020, the point was that we want to make sure that no current employee was harmed. We need to leave that wording in there. The rest of it we need to take out. So I'll make that motion to amend. Alderman Hayes, will you second that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to speak on this motion to amend, or should we go ahead and dispose of that?
I wanted to add to that we might need to take out the city administrator and put in the chief operating.
Well, that's all going to be gone.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
So Alderman Hayes, do you want to vote on that amendment? Or we can discuss either way. We could vote on the amendment, then come back to you, or we could discuss.
Yeah, I'll maintain the second. I'm
Okay.
just not sure I completely understand
Okay.
what we're doing.
So currently, you see the wording that I have on page 55.
Yes, sir.
That wording is in our code right now. We need to remove all of that except No current employee affected by the situation will be harmed by this new policy. That needs to stay in there. Everything after that needs to come out of our code. So that's why I had to amend it to make it even more confusing. So what you see in quotes is what my initial ordinance would remove from our code, but now I'm asking that we leave in our code essentially that first sentence. Does that come close to helping y'all understand it? I'm looking at the attorney down the desk, and he has a quizzical look on his face. Alderman Hayes, do you want me to come to you, or?
I'm wondering if we could get Director Taylor to come up and help us if there's any questions about.
He's going no.
This is first reading.
you-
so we can-
So, okay, we'll come back to you in just a second.
Okay.
He is sort of shaking his head no, but Alderman Cunningham, I don't think it gets any better, though. That's-
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, what was the purpose of having that last part of it in there? Was it an appeal process or something, or?
Now we will ask Mr. Taylor to come up. I can't answer that one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what was the purpose of having that last, the last part of that sentence in that ordinance? Was it an appeal type of process?
So I spoke with, and I believe Mr. Bradley can back me up, because I think him and I both spoke with Alderman Sprouse, who made the amendment back in October to add this language in. I believe his intent was that they, and I'm not looking at it, was that they could appeal it to, and going back and watching the meeting, there was an issue with his internet connection, I guess, and he cut off. And what his intent was is to basically say that someone, an employee that had a question about this, could appeal that to the Personnel Board, Mr. Bradley?
That's
I
right.
think it
Sometimes
says
it's
Board
put-
of Mayor and Aldermen, but that's about the time his connection went bad. And according to him and his clarification to me on the phone about a month ago, his intent was actually to say the Personnel Board, because you can't grieve things to a normal classified service employee cannot grieve things to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. They go through the Personnel Board process, if that makes sense. So that, I think that language was kind of botched up anyways, had to do with bad internet connection. In terms of the last half of that sentence, I mean, Mayor, you're the sponsor of this. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't,
So the other problem is on a case-by-case basis. That's not a policy. A case-by-case
Yeah.
basis is also troubling. So when we met with staff, like I said, about 2 months ago, those were the two items that came up that really need to be removed: case-by-case basis and appealing to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And so that's what this does. However, I should have left in that first line before sending it out to y'all. So now I'm asking that we leave in that first line by taking out that first line.
Okay, as long as it doesn't, by taking it out, as long as it doesn't violate any employee's process to appeal
no, I
in
mean,
the
I certainly
situation,
agree.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, case by case is not a good policy to go by. I mean, that just leaves the door wide open,
It's
so.
kind of open-ended.
Correct. I mean, that's the goal since I've been the director, is to try to draft good, solid policy to take out the case-by-case type situations, because they're no-win situations typically,
Okay,
so.
you've answered my question, thank
Sure.
you.
By the way, this is the first
Director.
time I've physically been in front of this board as the director.
Taylor?
Just wanted to point that out. I got the job right before the
physically.
pandemic, so.
Good
This is my
job.
first experience at the microphone, so. Anyway,
You did very, very well.
thank you.
Director
Thank-
Taylor.
Thank you,
do have
Mayor.
one more.
Okay,
Thank
hold on,
you.
hold on, Chris. Since it's your first time, we're going to keep you here.
Yeah.
Alderman Hayes.
Director Taylor, does this affect, or is e-pay affected by this? Or is e-pay affecting this?
This is language, I don't know how much I need to defer to you on this. So Jesse had come in about the time that the e-pay conversation was really getting discussed, I
Okay,
guess. And
okay.
kind of unfair to him, he kind of walked into a situation that topic was floating around. There is still some clarification that, at least from my understanding, that we do not have from this board going all the way back to the vote that night in October. I think some emails have gone out to you guys a few months ago. They're lengthy, but this topic is lengthy, and there's no short version considering the history and I don't want to say the inconsistencies, but at least the interpretations that employees have had over the years. I don't think that this language is going to alter the direction that I think that the city needs to go, and I think the intent of this board was last May and last October when this came up.
Thank
I
you.
think furthermore, some clarification, maybe not tonight, but some clarification may be needed about what was actually voted on back in October. I don't think tonight's the night to do that,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Maybe that's something that Mr. Eckenroth and I can maybe go back to the drawing board and figure out the best way to kind of get that to this board, if that answers your question.
It sure does. Thank you, Director
Sure.
Taylor. Thank you.
Alderman Hayes, anything else?
No, sir.
Appreciate that.
Thank you,
Alderman
Mayor.
Collins.
What is the definition of harmed in this sentence that we are now leaving in?
You just brought up what we spent about 2 hours with. John, do you want to try that one?
First, the reason we got this confusion, this was an amendment that was made on second reading. Mr. Taylor didn't write it or review it, neither did I. It was done during the second reading of this ordinance on a Zoom meeting. And it said, if you look at the tape as he did, it says to be agreed to the board, meant to be personnel board. It was put in the code as Board of Mayor and Aldermen. But the big problem was, what do you mean by harm? Because in May, we had adopted a policy about e-pay and promotions that said this will apply to all promotions after June 1st, 2020. In October, when this was passed, the thing having to do with e-pay, more specifically with e-pay, this paragraph was added about harm. And so the next promotion that came up, someone said, well, I'm harmed because I would have gotten more money if you hadn't done this, even though we had passed in May a policy that would have interpreted it the way that personnel, HR, wanted to interpret it. So we said, well, this one is in the middle. There maybe is some disagreement about what harm is. We'll let this one go through this way. But in the future, harm, if we're going to leave language in here about harm, it just means that nobody's going to lose pay.
Okay.
Nobody's going to get a pay reduction. And it may be better if we even say that instead of harm, Mayor, is say that just amend this to say, to add no current employee's pay will be reduced by this new policy,
I would support changing that
and
language.
delete the rest of it. Has everybody got that?
Current pay.
No
Current pay.
current employee's pay will be reduced by this policy, period, and then delete the rest of that language. Is
No
that
current
okay, Mayor?
employee's current pay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct. Your pay as of today, yeah.
current, that's
right.
current.
Well, hold on. Is it as of today, or is it as of November, as of October?
It's prior to their potential promotion.
That's correct, yeah.
We haven't had anybody in between. Just say current, and it'll be as of today. It hasn't applied since. We
Right.
have one case, and we've done it differently.
Yeah.
I think current means as of when we pass it.
Hold on here. So here's what, I am going to withdraw my motion to amend, and I'm going to submit a new motion to amend. We will strike all of that.
Okay?
Everything in quotes, we'll strike all of that. We will replace it with no current employee affected by this situation will have their current pay reduced by this
Will
ordinance.
suffer a pay reduction
Will suffer a pay
as a
reduction.
result of this new
You
policy.
change that, that makes.
Yeah, but will suffer a pay reduction as a result of this new policy. As long as Annette's got it, we'll get it right for a second reading.
And I will second that.
I appreciate that. You got it?
I think no current employee's pay will suffer a pay reduction.
No current employee
Will
affected
suffer.
by this situation will suffer a pay reduction as a result of this new policy. I think that's about as simple a way as we can say it.
Okay.
Everybody got that?
We have a very small group of people that have inaccurate e-pay designations right now. I think everybody's at least caught up there. The goal with this is to get them on the right track as of their next employment change, whether, most likely that would be a promotion. Obviously, you get into demotions or transfers or rehires or whatever. But that's the intent of this, and I think everybody's intention is correct. It's just making the language reflect that, if that makes sense.
So I'm going to move that, I'm going to make that motion for that amendment. Alderman Hayes, would you second that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a second from Alderman Hayes. We have a couple people expressed interest in speaking. I'd like to go ahead and dispose of this amendment, to be honest with you. I think it's just, we all have it on our minds, we understand it right now. And that amendment is to remove what you see in quotes and change it to,
No current employee's pay will suffer a pay reduction as affected by this new policy.
there we go. We're voting on that right now.
Do it quick before we forget it.
Repeat that, please.
No current employee's pay will suffer a pay reduction as affected by this new policy.
Alderman Robertson, do you want to speak on this amendment?
I just want to make sure that I understand. Will this change in policy affect the application of pay plan part 4.1, the promotion pay rate, that when an employee is promoted to a position of a higher pay range, he or she shall advance to the next step in the new pay range, which provides a rate pay closest to 7.5% increase?
It's a Chris Taylor question.
Yeah, I would certainly think that stands. That's in our municipal code. That's also in ordinance 2020-13, which John referenced, that was the intent going forward, that we would all fall under those same set of guidelines. I don't think this language changes any of that.
So any employee that is promoted to a higher pay range will receive a 7.5% increase per our rules.
Unless that puts them above the top grade and step that they're being promoted to. It might be 5%.
I think there's language that says at no time, no employee shall go above our pay scale. I don't know if that's what you're reading or where you're pulling that information, but that's all kind of in the same language. That's all in ordinance 2020-13. That's right out of the code. So it's reasonable that in certain circumstances, when an employee is topped out in their pay scale and they're getting an education bump on top of that, and they're promoted, there are situations that come up where that employee may not achieve a full 7.5% pay increase unless we're willing to start putting people above and beyond their pay scale, which I certainly do not think that's in anyone's best interest. We have had instances in this city's history, even recent history, where employees were promoted and only got a 5% pay increase because they follow our rules and our pay structure.
Okay, and I'm okay with moving this forward, and before the second reading, I'll get some clarification on this, but
I think it may be beneficial as well for transparency to have Mr. Eckenroth in those discussions. If anybody, I know this is a lot to dig through. It goes back for decades. We're trying to get this on the right track. The way to do that for a lot of purposes is to do it the next time one of these employees has an employment status change, a promotion, for instance, is get them on track at that point, rather than arbitrarily getting them on track. And that's the goal here, is we're not trying to arbitrarily change anything with these small group of people. We're basically saying in the event they have a promotion, which is most likely, then at that time we will start to follow our new promotional rules with e-pay.
Chris, thank you. Alderman Waters.
I think we're getting all mixed up here. 13 was to be brought to the board a couple of 3 meetings ago, and you pulled it. Am I right?
2021-13.
That's what I'm saying.
We're
13.
talking about
Chris,
2020-13.
hold on.
So-
Let him finish asking his question so we don't get confused up here.
Sure.
It's still 13, but I think we're getting confused on the two ordinances. We're talking about something else the mayor is wanting to amend. Now we're getting off on this other. And I think you was going to bring it to the board, and it got pulled, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and right now we don't anticipate it coming back. It could come back. It absolutely could. But
I just want to clear up the air here that we're talking about two different things. Okay? Thank you.
Yes. Appreciate that.
I think it's important to point out that ordinance 2020-13 is much different than ordinance 2021-13. Coincidentally, they're both 13. That doesn't help anybody. I just want to point that out. So.
So we're voting on the amendment at this point. So all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please signify by hitting the red button. But hold on 1 second. So go ahead and vote. The amendment passes unanimously. Now we're back on the main motion. Appreciate that, Chris. Excuse me, and appreciate that, Jason and Tina. We're back on the main motion, which is ordinance 2021-19 as amended. All those in favor of first reading of ordinance 2021-19, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please hit the red button. Not quite yet. There we go. That passes unanimously. Next, we're on Resolution 2021-10. This is a resolution to adopt a fund balance policy for the city of Hendersonville. Alderman Cunningham.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Petrelli. Alderman Cunningham, do you want to speak on this?
I'd like to suspend the rules, please, and have our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Eckenroth.
I don't think we should.
Yeah, I don't think we have to. This is the first time we've been in this situation, but I think we can hear from without suspending the rules.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. If you could give us just the board, just a quick summary of the purpose of this and what it's going to do for our general fund and how we're going to move forward with it.
I can. I have the
Thank you.
PowerPoint if you'd like me to go through that, or I could
That's
do
right.
quick. The PowerPoint takes longer, but I can do that or do a
It's up to the board.
short summary.
Board, would you like to see, it's important, it's really important, and it's a very,
It's 15 minutes though. Just
It might be worthwhile for the.
7.5-minute version.
okay. You know what? Let's pull it up and I'll go through it very quickly. I'll do the Cliff Note version of it.
We're gonna get the hybrid version.
You know what?
Thank
Let's keep the lights on though. I think we can see it fine. So
Thank you, Tina.
first of all, I'd like to thank the Finance Committee and Mr. Manning. They've worked extremely hard on developing a fund balance policy. And the goal of the fund balance policy was really to think about the future and at least the piece of it that we put in that's specific to Hendersonville. So the bulk of the policy deals with governmental accounting standard boards, standard practices. So that's a board that every year issues new statements. One of the statements is Statement 54. That's what this fund balance policy addresses. And that fund balance policy statement basically in a nutshell says that if there are revenues that are restricted, like State Street 8, where we get funds that are restricted to asphalt for road maintenance, then when you have those expenditures come up, you use those restricted revenues and you spend money out of there first. So it gives you some guidelines on where you use money. Let me go through here, and I want to go quick. And we'll pull up one where we talk about, okay, so that's standard classifications. It compartmentalizes into money buckets, and it really addresses where we draw money from first. So, for example, if we have a paving bucket, if we have paving expenses that come up, we use that paving bucket of money. That would be a restricted revenue. It also identifies authority level 4 and process of assigning funds, and it develops a minimum threshold requirement for unassigned funds. That's the available cash that we have. So our general fund is this fund that we can use for whatever. It's not restricted. So that is the last bucket that we ever want to draw from. And to kind of clear up what unassigned fund balance is, it doesn't equate to the money that we have in the bank. It equates to the money that we have in the bank that isn't already encumbered on a PO or some type of activity where we're contractually obligated to spend that money. So when we talk about unassigned fund balance and we say, you know, we have, for in this example, $21, that doesn't mean that's all the cash we have in the bank. That's just the cash we have in the bank that's not spoken for, that's completely unassigned. And the comptroller recommends that we keep a minimum of 16.67% of unassigned fund balance. So with this year's budget, that's approximately $7.6 million, which represents 2 months of city operations. So this policy established that minimum unassigned fund balance, and it also talks about setting up 2 reserves, a prudent reserve and an infrastructure reserve. I'm not going to go through all this in detail, but basically what we did, I want to just, you know what, you can pull that off now. We looked at how we can build some reserves, and we looked at revenue sources that come in, and we considered if we could use revenue sources that we have rather than a new tax to build reserves. And sales tax was one of those revenues that year over year really grows, and we have strong growth in that. So what we looked at is, can we pull a portion of that sales tax revenue aside every year and put it away towards growing our unassigned fund balance without hurting level of service? So when we looked over the annual growth of that sales tax revenue, if we pulled out a percentage, I think we figured if we pulled out 2% a year, we can still have growth year over year. So we wouldn't hurt level of service, and yet we can set some money aside so that we can grow that unassigned fund balance. So we address that in the fund balance policy, and then we also address what we do at year end if we have extra money left over from the budgeted process. And we said, hey, if we are at the end of the year and revenues have gone above what we expected or expenditures are below, and we're going to have the surplus at the end of the year, what can we do with that money to start building a rainy day reserve and an infrastructure reserve? So what the policy says is once that comptroller's minimum 16.67% is established, that unassigned fund balance, then if you have any budget surplus, that can go towards a reserve, a prudent reserve, and an infrastructure reserve split 50-50 after the minimum 16.67% per the comptroller's met. So it's a long-term approach to gradually build the city's unassigned fund balance. And then when we have those good years, to take advantage of those good years and stick money away into an infrastructure reserve and a prudent reserve. So that's the 7-minute version of it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Jesse, just with the strategic plan, just not explain, but that's a 5-year strategic plan to reach that 7.6 million?
Yeah, so when we looked at what we can, just got to take it real quick because we have it on here. So we looked at sales tax. I want to go through this quick. Let's look at when we put them both together. This is the very fast version. Okay. So the timeline to do this, if we look at a 5-year projection, what we'd get is combined 2.6 million. 10 years to 5.2 million, and 20 years, 10.5 million. So, and these were numbers we used from several weeks ago or even 2 months ago. So they've been updated since then. But we were at that time anticipating a unassigned fund balance of 4.6 million, which left us a gap of almost 3 million. And our annual set aside and surplus would average out to 524,000 a year. So this policy would take 5 years and 8 months for the unassigned fund balance to hit the comptroller's recommendation. Based on these are pretty conservative figures, and even with the budget that's coming out, our unassigned fund balance is much higher than what's assumed in here. So yes, it's a long-term plan. It's not something that you can do overnight, but it's a long-term plan that the city can continue to build that unassigned fund balance and set away for a rainy day and set aside for infrastructure.
And just also, the 7.6 million unassigned fund balance, which is the 16.67%, reflects the budget as it is today, not the budget it could be 5 years from now, where that unassigned fund balance should be a little bit more, right?
Correct. It's based on the current or the previous year's operating expenses, so that's going to change every year. But the set aside will also change because the sales tax goes up
Correct.
and those surpluses go up. It will probably mirror that.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick question. I know Keith Free and I have spoke about this for years, but in the infrastructure bucket, would we include capital projects in that? Would that be something that we could earmark? Because I've often said we need to set aside a capital projects bucket specifically so when these projects all come at one time, you know, $1.5 million, $1.2 million, $2.5 million, we're not standing here, oh no, where do we fund this from? So.
That's a very good point. So what's up on the screen is it's just a made-up infrastructure cost cycle, but anyone who's around infrastructure projects knows that one year you may have nothing, the next year you may have nothing, and then all of a sudden you have a $5 million project. So that infrastructure reserve would be for capital projects. And based on the cost cycle of capital projects, infrastructure projects, having some money set aside would really smooth out your curve. So instead of having sudden spikes, you could offset that with some money you put aside, and you could have a smoother curve where you're not so volatile with the cash that's going out.
I'm all for it. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Alderman Campbell. Alderman Robertson.
Yeah, first I want to thank the committee and also Mr. Eckenroth for this policy. I have a couple questions for you. Would it be possible, if this policy is adopted, to use unassigned fund balance to help fund a new budget?
So unassigned fund balance is wide open. There's no designation on it, so it can be used for any purpose, and that unassigned fund balance that we're speaking of is the general fund unassigned balance. So that's the comptroller's recommendation to keep that percentage, but The point of it is it's there for the city's use should the city need it, and it's a little bit of a buffer, but there's no restriction against spending it whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. My next question deals with the surplus at the end of the year. On page 63, under budget surplus, it says the city will, not may, but will use the surplus funds to satisfy the minimum unassigned fund balance of 16.65%, which this year is $7.6 million. So at the end of the year, if we find ourselves in the wonderful situation like we did this year, where we have a surplus, can we use that surplus to meet city needs that we feel are important? Or this policy says we will put it in this fund. So does that tie our hands?
No, it does not. So that unassigned fund balance is that amount that we can use for whatever purpose. And this policy really, it shows a good faith effort towards the city having a buffer
Okay,
in the bank account, but it does not restrict us for what we can use those funds for.
thank you. I like that term, good faith effort. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Alderman Robertson. All those in favor of Resolution 2021-10, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, hit the red button. We can go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously. Now we have Resolution 2021-26. This is a resolution to amend the job classification list and pay table. Alderman Peterson. Motion from Alderman Peterson and a second from Alderman Hayes. Alderman Peterson, do you wish to speak?
Mayor, I would like Director Free to approach the podium, if he may, and he can update us on this resolution.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. You've got before you tonight is a resolution to do a reclassification of one of the positions in the planning department. It's the administrative assistant 2 position. Is moving that from the administrative 2 position to a new position of planning technician, which is more appropriate to the current duties that the person in that position is currently undertaking. I kind of had a memo that kind of explained the whole back history of that. But this reclassification, it's kind of got 2 things going on. This is being done to do the reclassification, but then also I've got it in the budget, but if for some reason it wasn't approved in the budget and it was approved tonight, then it still wouldn't occur. So financially, it's something that is tied to the budget and wouldn't be effective until the budget was approved. And I can answer any specific questions anyone would have about it.
Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting Resolution 2021-26, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please hit the red button. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we have Resolution 2021-28. This is a resolution amending the personnel rules to establish reemployment guidelines for employees who are separated from the city but rehired. Alderman Brown. We have a motion and a motion from Alderman Brown, a second from Alderman Campbell. Alderman Brown, do you want to speak on this?
Briefly, Chris may want to come up to help me speak, or I'll. That wasn't really worded correctly, but you understood what I meant. So, this is basically, we've kind of had a loose policy on rehires or what we do with vacation time, probationary periods, and things like that. This really cleans it up and gives some definitive things that we will do if we rehire someone. So I'll let Chris explain. That was the real short version. I'll
Sure.
let him go a little more in depth.
Our current policy is just try to remember what we did last time. Just was up here 5 minutes ago talking about, trying to have some more consistent rules that are just, I won't say non-negotiable, but just not able to be interpreted. It's really just black and white. Since I've been here the last 5 years, we've had several rehires where we have employees leave. Maybe they realize the grass isn't always greener. they come back, especially in public safety. We've paid a lot of money for those employees through the academy and training and everything else. It's nice to have those people back. We can skip the academy and some of those costs. And public safety is where it seems to happen more often. This, obviously, if you flip back to the second or third page of this, it really lists some bullet points of all of the things that employees can expect as well as departments. One of the things that the mayor suggested that I'm a big proponent of is we all talk about good standing. Well, an employee leaves in good standing or they're not in good standing. And the mayor suggested we find some language saying define good standing. So halfway down the first page of the resolution, you'll see a paragraph. It starts with all candidates who are rehired. I'm not going to read it to you, but we define what good standing is in that paragraph because all employees who terminate with us, whether it be voluntary or involuntary, are considered either in good standing or not in good standing and eligible for rehire. So this is very necessary and really is just intended to clarify for employees and for department heads as to what happens to somebody's employment when they're rehired. So.
Alderman Brown.
Nothing else, good policy.
Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment.
Okay.
Section 1.3, second sentence,
Hold on one second. Let's make sure we're following you.
page 72.
Section 1.3, second sentence.
I would like to remove his and replace it with their.
Good catch.
Which is the case in most of that paragraph. So it's the second line, or delinquency on their part? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second on that? Sure. Yes. A second from Alderman Hayes. Hold on one second. Can I just ask all in favor? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. So we're just doing it fast. So it seems like something pretty simple. So what we're doing is we're changing the word his to their. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. That amendment passes. Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you for taking care of that. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Alderman Robertson.
Chris, under involuntary separated, if you'll look at that, it's on page 71. It gives three areas, I guess, conditional that that person has to meet. What role does a department head play in determining to rehire an employee that has been involuntarily separated?
So involuntarily separate, we've had that instance occur one time in our city's at least somewhat history, and that was with dispatchers a few years ago. They involuntarily separated to go somewhere else. In the event someone was involuntarily separated and wanted to come back to work for us, meaning that they did nothing wrong, they were terminated from employment, what role would the department head play? I mean, I think that department head would work alongside myself and Mr. Eckenroth to make sure we transition that person back fairly, equitably, not only to insert that person back in employment, but to make sure we're not inserting them back into employment and causing other issues with other employees in those types of positions as well. For instance, does that cover your question, or am I understanding your question?
I just want to make sure that department heads play an important role in determining whether an employee comes back or not, irregardless of their evaluations.
Yeah, I mean, that would mostly be their call anyways.
Okay, it would be their call, so that would be an additional condition that the department head would agree that this employee that was involuntarily separated could come back.
I would certainly be supportive of that, making sure the
Okay.
department head was comfortable as well. We're not going to arbitrarily say, well, you left involuntarily, we're just going to force a department head to take you back. I mean, we will certainly do everything we can to work with both sides.
And I don't think it needs an amendment. I think the legislative history will show that comment. I just want to make sure department heads have some say, in that process.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Eckenroth and I would certainly be supportive of that.
That's all.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. All those in favor of approving first reading of Resolution 2021-28, please signify by pressing the green button. Those opposed, please press the red one. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2021-16. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title I, Chapter 1, regarding the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and Chapter 6 regarding standing committees. I so move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Alderman Robertson. I want to explain a little bit what my intention was on this. There's a couple of things that I'd like to see happen, which I brought up at the workshop about 6 weeks ago, and then brought up in general committee. I would like our committees to have more time to meet, and therefore having a need for fewer special committee meetings. I'd like for our committee meetings and our board meeting, of course, to be set at times that are conducive for the public to attend, and I'd like for us to have a schedule. The further out we have our meetings scheduled, the better. What I suggested to the general committee was embraced somewhat, but most of this is from ideas from Alderman Brown. However, I'm not married to this. I don't think Alderman Brown is terribly married to this. I think most of what we want is a discussion to the way that we can operate, I think, a little bit more efficiently and still be beneficial to the citizens. Alderman Brown, do you want to speak on, or do you want to wait? Go ahead.
Yeah, I may speak now and speak again. And my biggest concern with meetings is time. My last two meetings in general committee, we covered everything in 27 minutes, and the meeting before that in 29 minutes. And we ran through it. It was like a sprint. So whether we give everything the due diligence it needed or not, I don't know. So whatever we do, we need to figure out how committees can get our time. Whether we do this or we do something else, I think anybody that meets in a committee up here would say that at least it needs an hour. Sometimes it'll take 30 minutes, but most time it'll take 45 minutes to an hour if we're doing due diligence. So that's what I would just urge everybody to look at as time frames. Thanks.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Let's see, Alderman Edwards.
Okay, thank you. I had sent out a proposed amendment to everybody last week, and I had changed what the mayor had sent out to the general committee, the ordinance. And then I got this in the packet, which was completely different. So that's the confusion, because you had time and place of regular meetings, changing section 1-101 as well as section 1-603. So my proposed amendment changed both. I don't know if it's proper if I made a motion to amend, to change your ordinance, which changes a complete other section. That might be something.
If you want to substitute the whole thing, that's absolutely appropriate.
Okay, just for discussion for tonight. Okay, I'll make a motion to substitute my proposed amendment that was sent out and copies given to everybody with your proposed ordinance.
Okay, and what that amendment is, you'll actually see, I think, the red lines I think you included with yours.
Well, yeah, not on the hard copies, but on the email.
Okay, go ahead and explain what your amendment is.
Okay, so I had proposed to have one BOMA meeting per month, and that would be on the second Tuesday, beginning at 6:00 p.m. And then the fourth Tuesday would be reserved and used for committee meetings, because as Alderman Brown said, we need to have more time for committee meetings, and this would allow for it, because now in the general committee, I mean, you have 30 minutes to talk about 5 or 6 ordinances and or resolutions. It's just not possible it defeats the entire purpose of having committees. So if we could do that, this is what I've proposed, and starting at 6:00 p.m., starting the BOMA meetings on the second Tuesday, and frankly, I think we can have one BOMA meeting a month. Sumner County, our county commissioners, they meet once a month, and they have their committee meetings scattered throughout the month. So I see no reason why we can't. And in the second part of my amendment, which is proposing to amend section 1-603 of the regular meetings, I threw some times out there. This is just a proposal, and we could start at 5:00 p.m. I propose that Public Works start at 5. They generally go longer. And I also propose for public safety to start going at the same time at 5:00 PM. I understand that we have 2, maybe 3 rooms where we can actually meet going on at the same time. And I had proposed for public safety to go at 5:00, because generally in public safety, we have a chief and assistant chief of both the fire and police. So we generally have more staff there, and so we can get them in, get them out faster. The other ones really don't matter to me. I mean, well, they do matter to me, but this is just what I had proposed, the Finance Committee starting at 6 and the General Committee starting at 7. So I would like to hear.
What was it? What was it?
Well, you know, that's just what I threw out, and that's what I proposed, and I would like to hear everybody's opinions on that if they so desire. And I had proposed that this not begin until July.
Okay. Alderman Edwards, I think there's one other thing you need to mention here, that the meetings will end at 10 o'clock.
And that's what I was going to say next. That's what I had put in here, to end at 10:00 PM unless 2/3 present vote, and then you can go to 11:00 PM.
Okay. So you're not making a motion this time to amend, you just want us to discuss it, or would you want to make a motion?
Well, my motion is to substitute this with yours.
Okay. Okay, we have a second from Alderman Collins. So there seems to be 3 main items here is what we're talking about in your amendment. That is that we have 1 meeting per month that would be in the second Tuesday, that the meetings will not last past 10 o'clock unless we have 2/3 vote to go to 11 o'clock, and that we change the committee dates and times to what you have here. Is that appropriate, that there's really 3 big changes?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. How many rooms do we have that we can utilize? We have 4, so we all 4 could start at 5?
Well, then
I'm
so
just saying.
Tina's saying thumbs up, so, yeah.
Yeah, all 4 meetings could start at 5. The only, which would be nice, but the only hindrance there would be if I have something going on
Exactly
in
right.
another committee that I want to attend. So, I don't know, that's logistic things that there is some meetings that we do want to do that. So, here's the other thing I would say too. I'm all for saving time, but I have sit through committee meetings over the years and discussed things thoroughly, and then get to the board level and have the exact same questions asked again and spend another hour discussing the exact same things that was discussed and went through in general or any committee. So I would ask that if we do this, I'm not going to say yay or nay yet, that we go back and follow our ordinances and start giving a written report out of the committees after the committees meet, before the next board meeting, so it can be in everybody's packet, so they can read exactly what went on in that committee meeting, and it should save a considerable amount of time.
You can do that.
So, we haven't done that, I almost have to say forever, because I don't remember doing it even back in '04 and '05 and '06, but I know it's on the books. We've done it some. But I would ask if we do that just kind of becomes natural, that we make that happen before that next BOMA meeting date. Thanks.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. My big concern here is that we're slowing down government. And while I'm a big proponent of managing the agenda to only critical items that we need to talk about for that BOMA meeting, I worry that we'll slow down decisions that we need to make. And also, I don't think you talk on either ordinance about special called meetings, because I guess the assumption is we won't have any, right?
Ideally, we wouldn't, but I can still call special call meetings.
I think there needs to be some language in here, because it seems like there's an assumption that there wouldn't be any. But again, I'm on the fence. I just want everybody to know, I had this in my packet was confused about what this was. And, you know, I was ready to vote on Mayor Clary's ordinance, but then I get this one, which I did read, but I thought that this was the amendment to this. So I don't know if I feel that 12 BOMA meetings a year is enough.
Thank you, Alderman Dixon.
Thank you.
Yes, I just want to say, we have other ordinances that deal with calling special meetings for
Okay,
committees. The chairman still would have the ability to call a special meeting of a committee. The charter gives the mayor the authority to call a special meeting of the board. One of the things that I had discussed this with Mr. Edwards was that if there were something that were time sensitive that needed to be considered quicker, that it would make sense for the mayor to call a special meeting on the committee meeting night. You know, maybe right before the committee meetings where the board could meet briefly to pass the second reading on something that was time sensitive. Other places do something like that. So that's a way that if you had something that you needed to get done quicker, you could do that on your committee meeting night by the mayor calling a special meeting. So that's just something else to consider with respect to this.
Alderman Dixon, thank you. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo what Alderman Dixon just stated, slowing down government. If we have an ordinance, for instance, it's at the committee level, then we have to wait at least 2 weeks for it to come to BOMA. And if the next BOMA meeting is 30 days out, you're talking about at least a 6-week time frame before we can pass that ordinance at second reading. That concerns me. The second thing is I'd like to see if maybe we could defer this whole ordinance until, let's see how we do in July and August, because we will have one BOMA meeting in each of those months, and see if it's slowing down the process and how that's working, and then evaluate it at that time, because I'm coming from the corporate world. Government works slow as it is, and this could impede that whole process. So right now, I can't move forward with this as it stands right now, Mayor. I'd like to wait.
Alderman Cunningham,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Alderman Collins.
For me, we all recognize that the way that we're doing things now is not great. We're spending an excessive amount of time staying here, or from Zoom in my case, all hours of the evening. And the problem that it is not really about how much time it takes out of my personal life. It's about, are we really making the best decisions at midnight? And I know I will just confess that I have lost my place on the agenda when it gets to be late. I know that several of us have had to clarify or ask to redo our votes. And I have to think that's because when committee meetings start at 5 and it's 11, you've worked, in most of our cases, a full 8 hours, and then you're on your 7th hour of BOMA. I'm sorry, but you can't argue that we're making the best decisions and that our minds are sharp at that point. I think that Russ's idea, or Alderman Edwards' idea, of having all of the committee meetings on one Tuesday and then having the BOMA meeting on the other Tuesday, the alternate Tuesday of the month, works really well, because even though we might not all be able to attend those committee meetings, we can all review them thoroughly and ask all of our questions before the BOMA meeting where we have to vote. Whereas when we're having resolutions now, sometimes that doesn't happen for us. So I think that, if we have an ordinance that waits 2 weeks, it is the next BOMA meeting, which is what it currently is anyway. So there's not a huge delay there. It's on the second reading that would be a month out. And if we need to do a special called meeting for 1 or 2 items, we can. But I like that it would force us to be more proactive and plan what our ordinances are. Sometimes I feel like we're very reactive as a group, And I think it could benefit us, making us think ahead a little bit further and be more organized and have more of a long-term plan and be less that's not long-term. Have more of like a 3-month plan of what we need to be dealing with, rather than being as reactive. I think it will result in better decision makings. I think, and I think the reason that government is slow is because it provides transparency. It also provides our constituents time to review everything that we're going over in committee and have time to get in touch with us and question us and comment towards us. So I like everything about it. I do respect, as Alderman Dixon said, that, the concern for urgency, and not all of our minds work alike. So what will help me make better decisions or feel more confident in them anyway may not be the same for everyone else on the board, but I definitely support Alderman Edwards' amendment.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you, Alderman Edwards, for bringing this to us for discussion and your willingness to be open to possible changes. I agree with Alderman Dixon and Cunningham. What I'm afraid that the unintended consequences of this ordinance may be is that the length of meetings will significantly increase. Some of us on this board have been involved when there are public hearings, public comments that can go on for hours. That's a legislative process that we can't thwart, that we can't stop. So what I'm afraid that the unintended consequences of this, we will have longer meetings, there will be delayed actions. When an item cannot be disposed of, it's going to take an entire month for us to get back to that item to dispose. So in effect, I think one of the effects of this ordinance is it's going to significantly slow down the legislative process even more than it is now. Yeah, the legislative process is messy, but, when I'm reminded what former Governor Ned McWhorter said when he was elected. He said, I knew what the position was when I hired on, and I'm not going to complain about the job. So, I knew that there were 2 meetings and with 2 meetings, we can balance the agenda so that we don't have meetings going till 12 or 1 o'clock. I'm just afraid that with this, Alderman Edwards, that it will make the meetings drag on longer, that items will slow down, and that it just makes for a clumsier process. And so I can support everything other than eliminating 1 meeting a month. I still think for citizens' comments, it's important to give them the opportunity twice a month if there are issues that they can come and address this board as a board. And so for those reasons, I can't support eliminating one of the meetings or limiting our meeting to just once a month. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe my cohort here and my lady on my left read my notes, because anything I say is going to be repetitious of what they've already said. But let me first say, if my memory serves me right, and I went back and looked at some tapes on our BOMA meetings, excuse me, and I think I got as far as 8. It went to midnight. 8. That's not many. 8 is not many. So as far as late hours, that's what we're here for. Title 1, Chapter 1, Section 101 clearly states, and I quote, just like my colleague said, BOMA shall hold monthly meetings on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, period. Okay? Let's remember when I was running, I'm going on 12 years now, but I remember running, when I asked for this position, I knew what the municipal code was. I knew what it said. It said 2 BOMA meetings a month, period. It didn't say anything about once a month, because I've got to echo what Alderman Collins said, and Alderman Karen has said, we're slowing down the government. Once a month, it's unreal. I can't remember what I did 2 days ago. I have to call Alderman Skidmore to find out what's going on. So be it. I'm just, let me check my notes, because I don't want to be repetitious here. Twice a month, open-ended meetings is a necessity for our city. And by the way, I believe the state law requires us to pass a balanced budget with 2 readings on or before June. Am I right? Okay. So let me close my little chapter here. I'm not concerned about the committee meetings. I'll go for anything y'all want to do on the committee meetings. I'm concerned about the 101, because it's just unreal. You go to 1 meeting a month. So I want to ask each one of you, should our pay decrease with a decline in 12 fewer BOMA meetings a month? Do you hear me? Should we still make the same pay that we was making because we was working two nights? That's a good question. I think they covered everything I was going to say, so I'll just yield back. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Waters, thank you. Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleagues in Ward 6 and Wards 5 and 4 down there. Just to let you know, I believe we need to have 2 BOMA meetings a month. And also, we were talking about ending at, there's been talk about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. Personally, midnight is fine with me because, like Mr. Waters points out, we've only had 8 meetings, but he and I have both been here at 4 o'clock in the morning hammering out issues, and also 2:45 in the morning hammering out budget votes that took till 2:45 in the morning to work out. I mean, yes, I worked the whole 8-hour day and came here and I can remember Alderman Woodcock stating when we walked out here at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think I'm trying to decide if I go home, take a nap, or just go ahead and make a pot of coffee and get ready for work. You signed up. Well, we signed up for what we signed up for. That's what we're here for. So it's part of the process, and we want you to be part of that process, and be transparent and be right here and have those meetings to where we can discuss these items to get them taken care of in a timely fashion. And that's the main thing. If we keep dragging it out, a lot of stuff gets lost in the waiting to be brought back out. So I prefer to just dig right into it, and let's just stay here, hammer it out, and let's move on. Thank you.
Alderman Campbell, thank you. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate, the spirit in which this was brought forward. However, I do agree with Alderman Roberson, Alderman Campbell. If we start having special called meetings, for instance, that are not on Tuesday nights, Mayor and John Bradley, I think, what do we need to do? Have a 48-hour notice and then the city recorder has to poll us? Is that the process?
We passed a resolution that says before a special meeting is called that the board would be polled to make sure there'd be a quorum. It had nothing to do with what day of the week it was.
Right.
But the suggestion here was that if there weren't a regular BOMA meeting on the 2nd or the 4th Tuesday, that would be the perfect time for a special meeting, where it wouldn't be the same day of the week.
Sure. So I guess what concerns me is, if we do start needing to have special called meetings to conduct regular BOMA business, and then it starts flooding onto different nights, Monday night, Wednesday night, which is a church night, Thursday nights, you know, it starts to get a little bit dysfunctional at that point. Most everybody up here has Tuesday nights blocked out for infinity because of our work schedules, because of our family schedules. You know, the first Tuesday of the month is planning. We all know that. Sometimes we want to see that. So I guess what I don't quite understand is, you know, can we just bump up, you know, Steve needs more time on the general committee, just Mr. Brown? You need more time on the general committee, so can you not, if we,
I'm checking the Predator score, we're up 2-1, go ahead.
Hold on one second. Alderman Brown, could you say that again, please?
The Predators are up 2-1.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alderman Petrelli, go ahead.
Good. Can you not just bump your meeting time up? Like, for instance, in the proposal, we have 2 committees meeting at 5 PM, and then the next committee meeting at 6 and 7. Well, I mean, we just passed an ordinance where all of our committee meetings are recorded, and I know that Alderman Dixon went back and watched one from yesterday, because she referenced it in her committee meeting tonight. And I'll be honest with you, I know we've only been back to in-person for 2 meetings now, but I haven't seen the committee meetings flooded with other aldermen, so, which is fine. But we have that backup that if somebody wants to watch a committee meeting, we can pull it up on YouTube now and get a pretty good synopsis of what happened there, in addition to the recommendation of the written report. So my concern is that meetings start deviating off of Tuesday, and then my concern is that if we do start lagging behind this, you know, we really could be delaying city business. That's my concern. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Petrelli, thank you. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, thank you. I won't keep just a minute, but I know, now y'all don't think what I'm getting ready to say, but I agree with Alderwoman Petrelli and Alderwoman Cunningham both at the same time. So,
Like a sandwich.
and Roberson. And my good friend Jim Waters.
More significant.
I know, that's the most significant thing we've made that bridge tonight. But seriously, they are right. All the ones that say that we need 2 meetings, we do need two meetings. And I think it's keeping in light of what I think really the people, the founders, the people that made our charter and believed in that many, many years ago. And it's been very successful. And we need to remain that. And as far as and I'll just say this, the Public Works Committee, you can put us at any time you want, the 5 o'clock time or whatever, 5:30 or whatever you want to put it in there, because we're always having special meetings. You know, we really are. Yeah, we've had, at one time we had a meeting that went 4 hours long. And so we realize as elected officials that it's the people's time, and we'll be here all night long if that's what you all out in the city of Hendersonville need. And it's your time, not ours. So I just want to let everybody know that, you know, I'm on board with the 2 meetings, and whatever time that you want to put us, that's fine on meetings, on our committee meetings, because we'll meet. We've met in the morning time at 8 o'clock. We've met at 7 or 8 at night, sometimes when we had to. We've met in the rain, and we've met everywhere in Hendersonville, really. So restaurants. Mansker Farms, yep, that's right, that's true. We met up, in fact, I've got a picture of all of us together out there, Arlene, out there. We met, I can't remember that cul-de-sac down there. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. So it does, you know, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to put us is fine. But my point is, seriously, we need to keep this at 2 meetings. And I thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
Yes, and I wasn't fully married or committed to this amendment. I wanted to open this up for discussion to talk about this, so I won't have my feelings hurt if everybody doesn't agree with me. That's perfectly fine. I just thought it was good to have this discussion. And so, and to comment on what a couple aldermen have said, I'm not trying to thwart our duties here. I'm just trying to make government more efficient. And I think what we've done in the past hasn't been the most efficient use of government time. And I read recently what the Parkinson's principle is. It says that work expands to fill all available time. So if we have enough time, we're going to try to find a way to fill it. That's why I think that the federal Congress, the legislatures and the senators, I think they should have part-time positions like our state legislatures, because if they have full-time, they're going to find stuff to do, and a lot of it's going to be reactive. And so I like how our state legislatures are part-time. I think sometimes the less government does, the better. So
I agree.
that's just my position, and I thought I'd throw that out there. I can see the writing on the wall that this is not going to fly today, so, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, withdraw my proposed amendment, and we can see how July and August go, because in July and August, I think we're having one meeting per, and so we can kind of see how that goes and maybe revisit it. But I thought it was good to have this discussion, and I appreciate everybody's position.
So Alderman Edwards, you're asking to withdraw the amendment. Alderman Collins,
Yes, sir.
you want to withdraw your second? So we have, the amendment has been withdrawn. Alderman Brown, I'm going to come to you in a second. Alderman Waters, I think Alderman Brown is going to make an amendment. Do you want to speak on the main motion?
I just got a question, really, about the committee meetings. Is that against the rules for the chairman, like on general committee, for Alderman Brown, to say, we're going to meet at 5:30? He calls me, he calls Alderman Hayes. Can we do that on our own without following protocol here?
No, we have an ordinance that sets
I'm talking
committee.
to the mayor.
Oh, I thought he asked me to speak.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bradley to answer it.
Thank you, John.
Can I answer it?
You got the floor now.
Thank you. We've got an ordinance that we passed that sets committee times.
Yeah.
So if the chairman wants to call a committee meeting at a different time, he has to call a special meeting, which is going to be limited to whatever he puts in that call. So I think what we've got before us, what's left before us, deals with those times for committee meetings, and this is the time to adjust it to what we think is best, but then there still can be special committee meetings called if you need one.
I just thought about it.
That's good. Yes, sir.
Alderman Waters, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor.
You were on. Now you're on.
Thanks for the discussion. I would like to make an amendment to 2021-16. My amendment would be that Finance Committee meets on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock, and that's what they're meeting now. That General Committee meets on the second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock, which backs us up 30 minutes. Public Safety Committee meets at 5 o'clock on that same evening, which backs them up 30 minutes. And Public Works Committee meets at noon. No, that's actually, Public Works Committee will meet at 5 o'clock on the fourth Tuesday.
So help me, we have a motion for an amendment. Second from Alderman Collins. I think what the amendment is if you look down the list of 1, 2, 3, 4, the bullet points there, change it to 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Alderman Brown,
Yep,
is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The days stay the same. Fourth Tuesday, second Tuesday, fourth Tuesday.
Correct.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second for that. Alderman Campbell.
I just wanted to say that's what I was going to recommend to Steve, if he'd like to move
Of course you were.
our times. And I was, seriously, I was going to say, I'll give you 30 more minutes.
I was going to recommend that too.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Campbell. Alderman Skidmore.
That's fine. I can do it. What about you?
I don't have to speak.
Okay. Alderman Robertson.
Alderman Brown, I can support that motion, but I do like Alderman Edwards' suggestion for our BOMA meetings to begin at 6 o'clock. So would you be supportive of putting in the meetings at 6 o'clock and then altering the committee meetings so that we could begin our BOMA meetings at 6 p.m.?
So all the committee meetings would meet at 5? Would start at 5?
4 and 5. 4 and 5.
Well, hold on. I'm going to let Alderman Robertson answer that one.
I guess I would leave that up to the chairmans, to determine what time. But yeah, that's a possibility that they could all meet at 5 o'clock and all of the committee meetings would have an hour. So then we would start at 6 o'clock and we'd be able to get out a little earlier, especially for people. I mean, I'm retired, but especially for people that have to go to work early that next morning. So that's one of the components that I liked in Alderman Edwards' ordinance. So,
Come to you.
yeah.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Brown.
That's a question to me.
Yes.
Here's what I would say. I'd like to chew on that a bit, which means let's pass this the way I amended it on the first reading and the second reading.
Okay.
We'll all kind of think about that a bit, see if it fits.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So currently, we have an amendment on the table which changes the times and the bullet points again, 1, 2, 3, 4, to 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And that changes what you received in your packet, not what was not the amended, not the suggested amendment. Thank you, Alderman Robertson. Thank you, Alderman Brown. We have nobody else wishing to speak right now. We're going to vote on the amendment. I'm sorry, Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the amendment from Alderman Brown, but in the structure of this ordinance 16, is there anything else in here that we need to be aware of, or this is just strictly addressing the standing committees? Is that correct, Mayor and John?
Yes, that's all it does.
Yeah,
That's all we're doing? Okay, thank you.
yeah, appreciate that. Alderman Brown, I want to make sure of something. I may have misspoken. What you're looking on page 76,
Yep.
all that you're asking to change are the times. You're not asking to change those days at all.
No. 6 o'clock goes to 6, 6 o'clock goes to 6, both 5:30s go back to 5.
Okay, so fourth Tuesday at 6, second Tuesday at 6, second Tuesday at 5, fourth Tuesday at 5.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what the amendment is. Alderman Campbell.
Could we amend the public safety time to 5:15, please?
Hold on.
I have 3 members here that I know would prefer to be, we don't need an hour. We could do it for 45 minutes.
Okay, hold on, just a second. Who seconded Alderman Brown? Okay, Alderman Brown.
I'm good. I'm good with that.
Okay,
I just
Alderman
didn't
Collins,
know.
you made the second on that? I did. Okay, so we're going to change the motion. It's been changed by the 2 people who made the motion. Public safety is 5:15.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To 6.
So,
45 minutes.
so reading down here is 6, 6, 5:15 to 5. Alderman Petrelli, did you need me to come back to you? Sorry, Alderman Campbell, thank you. Alderman Campbell, anything else?
That's all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Brown?
I'm good.
Okay. So the amendment is changing the times 6, 6, 5:15, and 5. All those in favor of this amendment, please signify by hitting your green button. Those opposed, please hit the red one. That passes unanimously. Now we're back on the main motion. The main motion is the proposed ordinance 2021-16 as amended. Does anybody wish to speak on this? Again, this is first reading. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by hitting your green button. Those opposed, please signify by hitting the red button. Not quite yet. Now we're good. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Next on our agenda is the vote for the appointment of Jason Tomlinson to the Arts Council. Alderman Collins? Motion from Alderman Collins, a second from Alderman Waters. All those in favor of appointing Jason Tomlinson to the Arts Council, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. I'm sorry, please press the buttons. I'm sorry. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, say no. We're just going to do a voice vote right here. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Next, we have brief committee reports. You good? Okay. Chairman Cunningham, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our finance meeting tonight, and we had several ordinances that we discussed. The first ordinance is ordinance 2021-20, an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2020-20 to appropriate funds in the amount of $14,000 from the general fund to the finance department line item reappraisal expense. That was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2021-21, an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2020-20 to appropriate funds in the amount of $16,688 from the general fund to the Parks Department line item insurance claims reimbursement was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2021-22, an ordinance to adopt the city budget and to appropriate funds for fiscal year 2021-22. We have deferred that to, we're going to have a special called finance meeting right after all the committees have met, so that we could have a better understanding of where we stand with all of that. Ordinance 2021-24, an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2020-22, appropriate funds in the amount of $826.92 from the general fund to the Parks Department line item scoreboards, was recommended unanimously. To ordinance 2021-25, an ordinance fixing the rate of taxation in the city of Hendersonville, Sumner County, Tennessee, was recommended unanimously. A footnote there, no tax increase. Resolutions under, we didn't have any resolutions, but we did review the finance budget, and we had no, we voted to recommend the finance budget as it was presented to us. Our sales tax, we went through our sales tax analysis, and our sales tax was up by over $409,000 year over year. Year-to-date, 16.23% increase of $1,876,798, which is like awesome
Alderman Cunningham,
news.
can you say that again? $1.8 million?
Almost 1.9. And that was sales tax collected through March. So we still have 3 more months of collections to go. So whatever we're doing in this city, we're doing it right. So just remember, this was compared to last year. Last year, we were down 31,000 in April because of the pandemic, and May as well. So this is just wonderful news. So that is adding to our bottom line, if we have a bottom line to add to. So with that, we went on to the hotel motel tax, and that has increased significantly year over year. Last year, this year, which wasn't a real true comparison because of the pandemic, we only collected $4,605. This year, $30,407. But previous years, when we started really tracking it, we're almost up to that previous year total of $32,000. So we're on track to really knock it out of the park with the hotel motel tax this year. At that rate, we'll probably be over 300, well over 300,000 collections in sales tax. And let me see what else we did here. We went over the cash flow report analysis, and that is on pace. That we won't be, we won't have to borrow any additional funds. We went over the stormwater report, reviewed the, like I said, we reviewed the finance departments. And I want to say a special thanks to our Chief of Operations, Jesse Eckenroth, and also our Director, Robert Manning, for the wonderful work that they have done with the budget, not only the budget, but to bring forth the fund balance policy, which is a awesome strategic plan for this board to get to the goal that we need to get to based on what the Comptroller's Office has recommended to us. And that is the end of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Chairman Skidmore, Public Works.
Yes, just briefly, we go over a couple of items. At our next meeting, we may be going into an executive session dealing with the discussion for the golf cart barn. We're in negotiations now, our discussion with our insurance company, and we may have to make a decision, all of us as a board, on that issue. I really don't want to say much about it at this point, except it needs to be fixed, and we're in the process of, the city is trying to get it done correctly. If you go out there and you take a look at it, you can tell where we have fixed it. But it's not a good fix. It needs to be replaced is what it needs to be. But we're in negotiation with the insurance, and if not, we'll need to go in executive session with that. Other than that, we did some discussion about traffic calming, and then also as Chairman Cunningham discussed on the ordinance for the Coca-Cola signage for the park, we approved it unanimously on to finance and to come to you all at our next meeting. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Chairman Robertson, Capital Projects.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll try to be brief. We had a capital projects meeting, I believe, last week, and we covered several things that you may be interested in. Excuse me. One of the things that took up primarily most of our time is the memo of understanding with Sumner County to provide city fire services in unincorporated areas for due compensation or due consideration. No committee had moved on that, so the Capital Projects Committee moved to enter into negotiations, formal negotiations with the county. The mayor will be the lead negotiator as mayor of the city, and you may want to discuss this, but he has appointed a committee, and I think we are to have our first meeting this Thursday to discuss strategy, negotiating strategy, and along with the fire department and others. So that's moving forward. As you're aware, the county is interested in helping fund Station 7 if we will extend fire services out into the county. So that's what this memo of understanding is working on. The second is the inline hockey rinks I'm happy to say, they're on schedule. The staff, Mr. Eckenroth, has put together a staff committee that meets, I think, every 2 weeks to look at the status of that construction to make sure that we're on schedule. We are on schedule. We have had one change order. So far, there is a problem with soil compaction, as I understand it. And I think the change order is for around $10,000 added to the cost to make sure that the soil has the right compaction for to support the building. So we're continuing to monitor that to make sure that we're on schedule and under budget. Do our best. We also had a brief discussion on the possibility of the city looking at installing LED street lights. The committee voted to postpone that till after the budget because it does have a big price tag, even though there are substantial annual savings with that. The committee voted to wait till after the budget to move farther on that. Finally, the committee pushed the staff on 2 items. First, we pushed the staff on light synchronization in the city. Everyone knows how long that's been in the process. Not all of that is the city's fault. A lot of that is new conditions that the state has put on the city, and our Public Works Department is working diligently and trying to comply with cross every T and dot every I. So we're continuing to push the staff on that. And finally, I know that a lot of people are interested in the exit off of 386 on Saundersville Road. The staff is working on some lane change designations, some new tape that would allow more cars to turn left where 99% of the cars are turning left onto Saundersville Road. So the staff is working with the state in trying to get permission because that is a state jurisdictional issue. But hopefully we'll have some good news on that shortly. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Robertson. Chairman Campbell, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety held a special called meeting. We discussed the budget impact on police and fire departments. Came up with some suggestions, and we'll be bringing those forth at the next budget discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Campbell. I have no report. Alderman Dixon. I'm sorry. Yes, Alderman Dixon.
That's who I am. I move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. A second from Alderman Waters. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.